We're back here, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Zach Gelb here with you. NBA season is coming up around the corner at the end of the month. So now joining us on the hotline is one of the best NBA analysts in the country for Bleacher Report and Sirius XM, and that's Ric Bucher. Rick, Zach Gelb here. Thanks for a few minutes. How are you?
My pleasure. I'm good. Waiting with bated breath for a NBA season that I expect is going to be maybe as exciting as any we've had, and always depends on exactly how things play out. But as of right now, there's just so many intriguing storylines. I can't wait for it to get started.
Well, it's not really intriguing here in Philadelphia right now. We're in a down period of basketball with Sam Hinkie leading the way, trying to bring some stability back to Philadelphia with basketball through tanking. And an ugly article came out today that doesn't paint Joel Embiid in the best of light and makes him look out to be a bit immature, as it was released by SI. He wasn't wearing that walking boot in Vegas. He was partying in Vegas, ordering a lot of Shirley Temples on room service and not listening to the trainers. How much of that are you hearing is true, and what does it say about Joel Embiid?
Yeah, I've heard the same. And by the way, I feel like I should be interviewing you because the whole Philadelphia situation intrigues me. There seems to be a divide among fans who are believing in Sam and are showing incredible patience, not just for NBA fans, but for Philadelphia fans. And then there are those who are looking at it and saying, okay, maybe the Emperor doesn't really have any clothes on, and we're just being given this figment of Sam's imagination. I had heard all the things about Joel Embiid, and look, a lot of these guys coming in, it really doesn't surprise me that they would act immaturely in various ways off the court. It's a matter of how are they handling things on the court. And what concerned me the most is that immaturity was reflected in how he was approaching his rehab. And maybe some of that is, if you're walking around without a walking boot and you're supposed to have one on, it's there, but it's also just the diligence of, I need to be training and following the rehab protocol as closely as possible, because here's a team that invested mightily in me. And for me not to take that as seriously as possible is negligent, and not to understand that means that it's a bad gamble, and that's in essence what Sam is doing. I know a lot of people want to hang analytics and how surefire it is, and this is a smarter way to go. He's gambling. He's trying to find lightning in a bottle by taking high-risk guys that aren't going to play for a year, and maybe it'll pay off down the line. That's not the sure bet. That's not the sure way to go, no matter how much confidence you might have in numbers.
You talked about the impatient thing and how there's two sides to this. I'm very impatient with Sam Hinkie, and I just don't see the end goal of when the stability will eventually kick in. And I don't have a lot of faith in him. In that article, it did say Josh Harris isn't impatient, but others in his ownership team are. So that's something that is very telling to me. And also, I don't know if Brett Brown and Hinkie are even on the same page. It seems like they aren't.
Well, look, Brett Brown comes from a San Antonio. The guy that I think about the most is Brett Brown, because he comes from an organization with the San Antonio Spurs that had a tremendous amount of success. And he goes from that, and it's easy for us to look at it, and it's easy for Sam to say there's a plan, but none of us, I can't think of anybody who enjoys losing on a night in and night out basis, and then that losing is associated with your job. Imagine that you're running a radio show and your ratings just suck, and there's no advertising, and the signal only goes 20 feet, and it's like, don't worry, nobody can hear you, and everybody's looking at it, and they don't know whether you're a good host or not. But stay with it, because one by one we're going to pick up listeners, and we're going to be okay. And you do that for a couple of years, and nobody knows what you're doing. You're falling off the map. That's a really hard way to go, particularly if you're coming from like the biggest and best radio station. So I don't. I think Brett. I don't know if Brett knew what he was buying into. I don't know if he knew what he was getting into. I wouldn't say that they're not necessarily on the same page. I don't know how strong the communication is, because that's one of the issues that I've heard, is that Sam is sort of closeted away doing his thing. And look, I like him. From a personal standpoint, I like him, and I like out-of-the-box thinkers. But what I do not like is someone who is going to do something extravagant or eccentric, and they have no track record for being successful being eccentric, and they don't feel like they have an obligation to anyone to explain what they're doing. If you're going to be eccentric, that's fine, but you got to let me in on a little bit of the crazy thinking that you have going. Like, how is this going to come together? And that's what I haven't received from Sam, and that's what makes it, even if you liked him, even if you wanted to defend him, it's awfully hard to do that when he's not letting anybody know exactly how this is going to have a happy ending.
And that's where I think Brett Brown is frustrated, because he does go from a great level of winning and then to a basketball team that isn't winning at all and doesn't have any commitment to winning in a 3-year process. And he had a player like MCW who won the Rookie of the Year, and he was a big fan of him, and then he gets traded away. So that's where I think that frustration really is, Rick.
Well, the other part of that, too, is, and this is the part that I can't get away from, is that talking to people in Milwaukee when Michael Carter-Williams showed up there, they were astonished at how out of shape he was and his unpreparedness for playing the kind of focused basketball that they needed him to play. And I wouldn't have expected that. I wouldn't expect that from Brett Brown, but I do think it's understandable in the situation that Philadelphia is in. And I know everybody's, they're playing hard, they're instituting the right principles. Every young guy thinks he's playing hard until he realizes, there's 2 more levels of commitment and effort and energy that can be expended here. And you don't get there unless you have those 26, 27, the guys who've been around for a little while, who've been through the meat grinder with really good teams, sweating, working hard, all that. There are levels, there are degrees to all that. And I just have a hard time believing that while Brett may know all of the principles and habits that you need to institute in a team and to have a successful team long range, if you don't have guys in the locker room holding each other accountable, if you don't have somebody who's a player who is setting the pace and demonstrating on a daily basis in practice how hard you have to play, when you should get there, the work you should be putting in before and after practice, and not just hours in the gym, but smart hours in the gym. I just don't see how young guys, particularly in this day and age, when they're spending very little time in their college programs, and college programs aren't what they are, or what they once were, that anybody is getting the right example.
We're spending a few minutes with Ric Bucher from Bleacher Report and Sirius XM. Let's get to Jahlil Okafor. He's not 100% healthy, but nothing appears to be too serious. What are your expectations for him this year, and how do you think he will coexist with Nerlens Noel on the court with the 2 big men in the paint?
Well, on paper, they're certainly a good combination. The question I have, just in talking to people, and I liked what he showed in Summer League. I also thought in Summer League you saw that offensively there's going to be a question as far as how many times does he have the requisite athleticism? I know he has the skills. I know he's worked on his game. I would not be surprised, and this happens to rookie Sharif Abdur-Rahim when he came in. I think he had his shot blocked the most of any player in the league. When you're in a situation like Okafor is with Philadelphia, you're going to get a lot of shots. The ball's going to come through you a lot. People are going to load up on you. and you're probably going to get the most athletic defender, big man defender from the other team. And as a result, you're going to get your shot rejected a lot. Can you play through that? Can you not be intimidated by that? That's going to be the challenge. And then defensively, I would imagine the teams are going to put him in the pick and roll all day long. And does he have the lateral quickness to be able to handle that? All of this could be minimized if he had a great point guard. And I like Kendall Marshall, but that is where when I look at the rest of the pieces, I think Jahlil is the type of player that can thrive on a good team. I'm not sure that he has the skill set to carry a bad team.
Rick, I have to get to the whole Lamar Odom situation. It's some very sad stuff, and he's fighting for his life right now. I know there's been some positive stuff as of late on his condition as they finally have found his heart rate. But when you take a look at the whole Lamar Odom situation, you've interviewed him before. I saw some interviews that you did with him in a barber shop. Who's the Lamar Odom that you know? Because there's a lot of negative stuff being said about him right now.
He's the most thoughtful, kind-hearted. I always thought two things. One, that he was almost too nice to be in the NBA. That there was just a sensitive side to him that was not ideally suited to be in the NBA. And then the other part was that he was like a bird with a broken wing. I always felt like there was this tinge of sadness always hanging around him, even in the best of times. I don't know, I think we all know people that just have this, you just look at them and you kind of feel bad for them, and you don't know exactly why. And there's a lot of things that Lamar had going for him that life should have been sweet. Now, I don't forget doing sideline for a game and for a Lakers game, and saw his dad and asked if we could do an interview. And he said, sure, when do you want to do it? I said, let's do it the first time out in the third quarter. And I was talking to him during the first half. So I see him at halftime. Hey, we still good? Yeah, we're good. First time out, third quarter comes, he's nowhere to be found. He's not in his seat. I'm looking around. I got to tell the guys in the truck, I don't know where he is. Beginning of the fourth quarter, he comes and finds me and says, are you ready to do this thing? I'm like, we were supposed to do this. We're supposed to do this. Why can't you do it any old time, right? And that, to me, that's kind of where Lamar came from. So that things would go off track when he didn't have the culture and the incubator of a team around him. Unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me.
I have a big NFL background, and something that's always talked about when they bring up CBAs is what could the league and what can the current players do for those older guys that didn't get paid a lot. When you take a look at this whole Lamar Odom situation, there were some signs for some things that I've read, especially in this last year. Was there anything the league could have done or players in the league could have done to make sure that this guy got help?
The league could certainly do more. It's once a guy is outside the purview of the league itself. To me, it starts with how you're working with them and the support that you're giving them when they're coming into the league and while they're in the league. And it's really, it's the life lessons. It's hard for me, as much we look at the NBA, we look at professional sports, and we think of all the money that is there, and we think about how emotionally attached we become to athletes, and we think when things happen after the fact, they're neglecting these guys once they're done with them. And to a certain extent, that may be true. But I can't really hold the NBA or any other league to a standard that I wouldn't hold a normal business to. And when somebody leaves the company and goes elsewhere, is it their responsibility to make sure they're okay at that point? I don't, maybe it sounds cold-hearted. I don't think it is. I think while they're under your purview, that's when you work with them. And if there was any time to work with Lamar, it was understanding where he came from and having him understand where he came from and making sure that he recognized that and did what was necessary to, in some ways prepare himself for after playing. And I don't know that happened. Obviously it didn't happen to the degree that it had to happen to save him from the situation he's in now.
Last one with Ric Bucher from Sirius XM and Bleacher Report joining us on WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. I don't think anyone is going to take down LeBron James this year. I know you're very excited for the start of this season. What are some of your biggest storylines entering the 2015 NBA season?
There are so many of them. That's what makes it exciting. Number one, it seems as if while the Clippers are the only ones really talking about it, nobody is giving the Warriors full credit for being the champions. In fact, if you look at the Las Vegas odds, they're third behind both the Cavaliers and the Spurs, and yet they brought everybody back. They're young. There's what's the thinking that San Antonio has LaMarcus, or if Cleveland is healthy, it's a different story. I guess, but I don't think that they're getting the full respect that they deserve, and as a result, it gives them the motivation that they might have been lacking having climbed the mountain. So I want to see how that plays out. The Oklahoma City situation with Kevin Durant and Russ Westbrook coming back together and playing, knowing that the specter of is KD going to stay or go hanging over them. Obviously, LeBron having committed himself, from everything that I've heard, to realizing, hey, we were this close and we weren't healthy, but the clock is ticking. I need to get this done now. Can a franchise basically run by a player, can it win a championship? We've never seen it. That's the Rubicon that LeBron is trying to cross. And then San Antonio experiment with LaMarcus Aldridge, Washington Wizards and John Wall. I mean, you can go there. Boston Celtics, do they take a step forward? How disappointing is this? Is Kobe's last hurrah? This is indeed his last hurrah. There's a ton of things to watch and pay attention to, and the beauty of it is you could name any of those, and I'd say, yeah, that's number one. But if it fell out, I'd take the next one up.
Ric Bucher, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thanks for a few minutes.
My pleasure, Zach.